Hey guys, welcome back to my series where we're talking to my favorite people in the world of trampoline, tumbling and double mini. Today I've got 7-time British tumbling champion and European and world tumbling champion in both individual and team, Kristof Willerton. Hi Kristof, how are you?
Hi Simon, very good, thanks. You?
Not too bad. How's lockdown been?
Yeah, not bad at all, to be fair. It's been obviously a very interesting period for loads of reasons. Kind of something that I'm kind of trying to make the most out of. So obviously there's a lot of hard times during it, lots of struggles that I'm sure plenty of people are going through, but kind of feeling like I'm getting kind of a good positive spin out of a lot of it as well. So actually kind of enjoying quite a bit of it, obviously whilst missing the training massively and stuff like that and wanting to be in the gym, but kind of, yeah, appreciating the time to be able to work on things really.
I've seen you've been reaching out. I was talking to a coach in Ireland, Elaine, and you've been reaching out and quite helping a lot of people, like just giving up your time for free and being quite motivational to the gymnasts over Zoom.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I always kind of take it back. I know when I was a younger gymnast and I always got into the sport and kind of a very grassroots level and kind of did it because I loved it and was obsessed with it and always kind of looked up to people. So I still find it very strange that I kind of get the reaction now where some people kind of find it very strange to talk to me. So I know during this time, I said we've been able to have a bit of contact with gymnasts from our club and just kind of seeing how everyone's has their own personal struggles and how everyone's kind of dealing with it differently. So yeah, to be able to reach out just to a few people and just to kind of be able to offer any support and just be able to kind of share my experience, because obviously I kind of felt like throughout the journey, throughout my career, I've managed to have quite a few knockbacks and had to work on things to be able to move out of situations which obviously not like this, but quite similar. So yeah, just to be able to give a bit of time, just to be able to kind of help a few people, if it helps anyone, has been been a very rewarding thing to do.
Well, I think it's been very well received from what I've heard from Elaine. So I think it's a really good initiative. So.
Oh, and I'm learning a lot from them as well. As in, I take so much from being able to talk to different people, hear their stories, and kind of see what they're doing as well. So it's a two-way street, really.
Right, I'm going to get started. I'm going to start asking some questions about your career because I think you've had a really successful journey in tumbling. But I want to find out the nitty-gritty and find out like real details of how you got there and what you had to do to get there. So, can you tell me like how did you get started in gymnastics?
So I have an older sister. She's 2 years older. So obviously I think it was quite natural. My mum was a big fan of gymnastics, never did it herself really, but obviously she was quite keen on my sister doing it. I'd started out with football, but I remember the first session I went to, I got a black eye, got kicked in the face, and I think that kind of put me off as a little kid, going, maybe that's not for me. I remember I had so much energy, so I was just that was the one thing for me. They couldn't really control me like that. So I think I was 4 years old, and while I was waiting, I was just such a ball of energy. So they kind of said, you have a go in. So I tried locally in Gloucester, just some small like it was an aqua club predominantly to start with.
You started. It wasn't like just a general gymnastics or anything.
I guess it was kind of a feeder. It was a general gymnastics club, I guess. They were fed into the aqua and tumbling club. So it was kind of recreational gymnastics, I guess I started with. And then obviously I took to it quite well, really enjoyed it. Obviously they thought I had something about me, so kind of introduced me into the squad environment. And that's why I got into aqua then.
Was the squad environment, or was it just tumbling, or did you do a bit of acro as well?
So no, I did both for quite a long time. I've been to quite a few disciplines in my time. But yeah, so I started off with aqua, which I think, to be fair, was a great foundation, and always is a lot I've taken from that time onto me now still. But they had, so I think I was 8 when I moved into the aqua club, and I don't think I started tumbling until I was 10, so it was a couple of years. And everyone kind of did both. The club was centered around aqua, but we kind of got to do a little bit of tumbling, and I took to tumbling obviously so much more naturally. I don't think aqua was for me. A lot I took from it, but it was never my calling. And then I just kind of fell in love with tumbling.
What level did you get to at aqua?
Got to at FIG level. I did get to British Championships.
Okay.
I think I managed to compete against Douglas Fordyce and Edward Upcott, who were world champions.
Oh yeah.
Not on the same playing field in any way whatsoever. I could do. We weren't bad at tempo, so tempo routine we could do a fairly routine. Balance was left to be desired, I think.
The tempo was all the somersaulting work, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which obviously, with the way you like tumbling, probably made sense. And then you're saying about you did a good few disciplines in your time. You've done trampoline and double mini as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
How did you get into trampolining?
So I think actually it was Matej Todorov. He was one of the technical directors at the time, and I kind of did a little bit of trampolining just for a little bit of fun, but he actually came to the club once and was kind of looking for acrobats and tumblers, and he kind of actually highly encouraged tumblers to do trampoline training as part of their program. Yeah. So obviously I kind of looked into it a lot more after that, and thought actually it's something good that I can do. And obviously it was found Dawn in Gloucester, and that was kind of where I kind of got into.
Dawes Lawson, isn't it?
Yeah. And kind of fell into love with trampolining there as well. And obviously I think I've always been so lucky that wherever I've gone, I've always had very highly motivated coaches, or motivational coaches, sorry. So kind of wherever I've gone, I've fallen in love with the sports like that. So
did you compete trampolining ever?
So yeah, I did compete, and got to the British Championships as well. So did do top level. Trampoline again wasn't quite for me. I was so much better at traveling. So on the trampoline, obviously that wasn't
up and down,
the
like
most used. Exactly. So I think I love trampoline the training point of view, but competitions was I think I found a little bit more nervous, and it was never as natural to me again. So it was such a useful thing to do.
Did trampoline, did it crossover? Because I think you're one of the main gymnasts, I would say, has trampoline execution on the track, and your phasing of somersaults is quite like trampolinist as well. Did it help in that way?
100%. As in, it's been my biggest strength, I think, as a tumbler. I've never been the most powerful tumbler. I've never been the most fast twitch. So there's a lot of, and I'm obviously quite tall. So I don't think I would have been selected as the natural tumbler, the trademark tumbler that we kind of see some of the Russians, for example.
Yeah, the short stuff.
Yeah. So we kind of had to play to different advantages, and I think one of the main things was technically I was quite aware, and I knew my phasing, and I think that definitely developed from trampoline work. Without that, I never would have, I think, got to the level I did.
Yeah. So in terms of tumbling, when do you decide, okay, I'm a tumbler, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to concentrate on?
It wasn't until I was quite a bit older. So I juggled three. So I did tumbling and acro, and then start trampoline. I then kind of made I got selected for World Age very young in tumbling. That was my first FIG competition, in fact, because at the time there wasn't the structure that we had. So I basically caught a break. And that's where I met Paddy, my current coach, at Andover. And it was an hour and a half away, so it was a big commitment, but I kind of decided that's really what I wanted. I wasn't wanting to do that, I wanted to do tumbling. So
you'd been a national level gymnast before you moved to Andover? Yeah.
So I was an NDP gymnast, essentially, and I said I went to the trial because Mate, who I mentioned earlier, was looking for acrobats, and kind of saw me and said, it might be worth taking him for the tumbling trial because there wasn't many boys at the time. Said, got lucky. A few people made mistakes. I got on the team, and there was nothing to shout about. I said 5 foot full twists and straight back at 12 years old, and now we see people doing
full ends.
Exactly, 10 years old.
Did you have a guys set on international standard at that young age? Wait, was there a national setup the way there is now where you could progress to national squads and stuff like that?
No, after that I became part of the national squad later, so I'd never been onto the squad. So I actually went to my first World Age Championships. I remember being dropped off on the bus. I'd never been to a FIG competition apart from the trial. So I recognised a few people. I didn't know any of the coaches. I didn't really know any of the other gymnasts because I'd never been on the squad, and just kind of got lumped on the bus and was like, off you go, enjoy.
What about, so you had never done a national FIG level competition before you did that World Age?
No, yeah, that was my first insight into it. And that's why I think it's such a crazy time at the moment. It's so different now because we kind of expected that, if you're not on a national squad at 9 years old, actually, it's probably too late for you. Yeah, and you think,
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you saw an interview I did with Ruth, who started trampoline in her first class at 16, and now she's got, a multiple world medalist and stuff like that. So, when you moved up to FIG, were you successful as a junior on the national circuit in Britain?
Not so much. There was always two very, very good boys, Connor and Sean, and they were kind of people I really looked up to, but I was nowhere near their level. So they were kind of the ones that at a young age, they were incredible. So I always had to chase. Occasionally I would be about third and fourth. But I kind of enjoyed being there. It wasn't until 15 really that I actually kind of started to do well in tumbling.
Do you think that chase made you better? Do you think having to try and keep up with Sean Gregory and Connor and stuff made you better?
For sure. I kind of, I've had times where I've been at the top, and obviously had times on chasing, and actually chasing is a lot more of a natural and easy thing to do, because if you always have someone to look up to, you kind of, you're never resting on where you are. You kind of go, oh, yeah, I'll keep kind of chasing progressively.
So who was your coach around that time before you moved to Alan or Paddy? Sorry.
So I was at Checkers in Gloucester for tumbling. So I had Sarah and Helen. They were two of the coaches there. And there was a whole team. I had Lara Painting. She was a South African World tumbler. She came in to do a bit of coaching with me. I worked with Terry as well. There was a big team there, and obviously Dawn and trampolining.
Was there a kind of history of world level tumbling in that club already, or were you the first one to come through from that club?
I was the first one there. Yeah. So they were predominantly a aqua club, and national level, but obviously not a huge level. But beyond that, if we got people to British Championships, that was kind of a big deal. So in tumbling, I think obviously when I kind of hit that level, they kind of realised, and they were always brilliant at kind of going, well, they knew they couldn't offer what I wanted, because kind of after the World Age Championships, I kind of said, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to do more hours. I want to do tumbling and not acro. And they kind of said they wouldn't be able to offer that. So that's kind of when I made the change to Andover.
Well, Paddy, was probably a national level coach at that stage, was he? He was on a national team.
So obviously Paddy was the chaperone that I met at the World Age Championships. So he was the one that was kind of looking after us and coaching us there. So yeah, and that's kind of how it happened. Because Andover wasn't the close. I mean, it was an hour and a half away. At the time, there wasn't many clubs close, but it was a big commitment that we kind of just did once a week. And then obviously, the more I fell in love with it, we kind of made the change.
Was tumbling just kind of, because it used to be held as with acro at Fenton Manor, didn't it? Did it feel like its own important discipline, or did it feel like just an add-on to acro? Was it given its own status, or was acro the main one and tumbling was just a bit of an add-on?
I don't know 100%, to be fair. I think actually they were quite unique. They did have their it wasn't you had some people doing one but to help the other. Actually, you kind of, after a while, you had tumblers and you had acrobats, especially at the British Championships. Locally, like at the regionals, you'd have people doing both. But I don't know, to be fair. My impression was never so much. It did feel that they were their own disciplines, I guess.
Did you have to qualify to British at that stage? Was there a qualification process?
I don't think so. I think you just entered, which is a bizarre concept right now when you think about it. But yeah, you just turned up, I think.
Yeah, because now it's such the spring series are qualification events for British Championships, and if you don't hit it at them, then you're done.
Yeah.
You're out. And then, like you said, now we talk about trials, it has ramifications for trials and stuff, because then you can't trial for Worlds, and it just all the things, and you can't go on the British squad.
And that's why I always emphasize a little bit when I see the current structure. Obviously, you understand why they do it, and obviously the massive benefits we've gained from it. But I would have been lost through the system, because if that was at the time, I wouldn't have got my entry into the sport, I don't think, and I would have stayed probably quite locally, just kind of at a low NDP level. So obviously, you have to cater kind of for most of the people and get the structure correct. But trying to maintain a bit of flexibility, which I think which is happening. As you said, I do wonder whether I would have made it on the current structure.
Yeah, it's quite tough to know, because you can get stuck at NDP level, can't you? And it's sometimes hard to push through unless you do it early. So you went to 2005 World during Eindhoven. you made the qualification. Like, how did that feel going? Because you said you came from NDP. You were only 12 at the time, weren't you? I think 11 or 12. Second year, 11, 12. Like, did it feel like a big deal? Did you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to the World Championships? Or the International Age Group Competitions, it was called then?
I don't think I understood kind of the pathway of what it entailed. It wasn't kind of like, sometimes it's now seems a stepping stone. For me, I remember, obviously it was it was made to be quite a big deal at the club, because obviously it was something that hadn't been done before. And I remember going there and just being awestruck, just kind of seeing so many, just watching the competitors. I remember watching the Russians kind of like a year older, and just watching some of the stuff they do and just being like, oh my God, what is going on here? It was kind of like, I'm out of my depth here. I never kind of felt like I didn't deserve to be there as such, I guess, because obviously my standard wise, I was way below everyone really there. There was only a couple of us probably at where I was. But I just remember going there and just kind of falling in love with it, and I remember seeing Sarah Turner. She won the World Age title there, and there was like 3 Russians and 3 Brits in the final. It was such a massive, fierce battle, and I kind of remember just being like, I love this. Like,
you at that point, that would have been your first introduction to the world of trampoline as well. Like, because all of a sudden you're in just acro and tumbling, and then you're shoved in your teammates with trampoline and double mini. Like, was that weird? Was it like, because you didn't know these people at all? Was it overwhelming?
I think it was a little overwhelming for me from every point of view, because I said I didn't even know any of the tumblers. I remember I'd recognised Connor and Sean. My roommate, I remember, hadn't even arrived, and he arrived in the middle of the night. So I actually was, the first day I got there, because they travelled separately, I was literally shoved in the room by myself as well.
Oh wow, you're loud now, I do.
Yeah, so but I don't remember it phasing me massively. But it was kind of, I still remember the massive Team GB spirit as well. You don't feel it until you're kind of part of the team, I guess. I remember another one, Asha Phillip, when she won her title as well. And the buzz around the whole team was just crazy. Just everyone was going crazy. People were waving flags and running around. And I kind of thought, yeah, wow.
Did it feel amazing first time you put the kit on? Like when your kid arrived, the first time you put your tracksuit on, did it feel, oh my God?
I honestly can't remember that. I don't think that ever actually really was a big part from, because obviously I know that's what most people love, actually getting the kit for the first time.
Yeah.
Our kit was pretty shocking the first time. I remember it was kind of like a papery material.
I think I remember it. Yeah, it was a horrible colour as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. But to be fair, I do think I probably wore it every session after that for the rest of my life until the next competition. So I say that, but
do you think that because obviously there's always an argument, and it's still going on, even in FIG, where they're debating having a junior worlds instead of world age. Do you think 11, 12, it's beneficial to go to a world level competition that young? Would you think it was beneficial for you?
It's a very difficult question. I think it's too young, personally. I did it myself, and it was my first insight, but I don't think I would say I was competitive level like that. I think people who train way too young, and it's the be all and end all at that age. I think that's too young to be able to deal with that. I don't think you're mature enough. So I remember I went there, I had no expectations. I was so lucky that I got the exposure. I got the hunger, the passion. Like I just became a massive gymnastics fan being there. Yeah. But I wasn't going there and going, I've worked 2 years to do this. If it goes wrong, it's going to be the end of the world. I was still just falling in love with the sport. But I think yes, it's a bit too aged in the current structure for people to deal with pressure at that level, expectation. And actually, I think it's very important to have failures at a young age. And also, so I think even the gymnasts who do very well at a young age, actually that's almost detrimental, like long term.
You do see a lot of the ones who are maybe 11, 12 or 13, 14 world age champion, and they never become senior.
I did a big study on it once as part of my coaching, to kind of look at the ages of people getting their first international medals, first British medals, and which ones made it to senior team. And it's, especially for boys more so than girls, gymnasts who did well quite young never really made it to senior. Whereas the senior, we're talking about gymnasts like Ruth, who actually come into it later, actually usually form and stay for longer.
Yeah, and Kim as well, she only did 17, 18 age group at FIG before she went up to senior, so she was a late developer
Well, and sometimes you see that there's longevity in that. So you're saying you weren't at the standard and you came 12th. But did that give you, because sometimes people, they're not the standard, they can put them completely off. Did it give you that hunger to be the best and be better?
I'm going to say no. I don't really know when I first started to develop that, because I mean, at that time I remember when I came 12th, and that was a very lucky 12th. Like, I fell over and I don't know how I came 12th. But I never really looked at the position. I remember being like, oh my God, wow, you know, I've come 12th. And I do remember looking at the scores and be like, oh, I got, you know, a high execution score on that run. But yeah, I guess I always just chased, not so much the results, I guess. There was a stage where I would start to kind of push for that.
Yeah.
It was always just trying to chase more so, like, these boys are doing these skills. Okay, if I learn this skill, actually, you know, I'm going to be on the same playing field. I can actually learn these skills and do these cool tricks.
And 2007 then, World Age in Quebec, you've made that as well. Were you a bit more serious about it by that stage?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, I think that's when, I mean, I'd had two breaks by then, two injuries, and had to kind of come back each time. And that's obviously I'd got into mini at that time, and that's why I did mini and tumbling at that World Age.
Yeah. Which is surprising, because it's not a big thing in Great Britain. Internationally, a lot of tumblers compete double mini and are very successful in senior level, but it's not a thing in Great Britain. Was it seen as, were you kind of the dark side coming over to trampolining?
It was a bit. I do remember there was always jokes about, you know, kind of me defecting over to GMT and then me defecting over tumblers. So it was a bit of a, like, taboo about it.
Did you do TMT because of the break, a part of your rehab? Is that how you got into it?
I think, I'm not actually 100% sure, but I think always one of the things was when I got my injury in tumbling, I think we thought if I could try and do mini, which would be quite a natural thing for me to do, to try and get onto the world team, and then they might be able to pick me for tumbling as well. I don't know what the logic was there, and why that happened. But said, mini came very naturally to me because obviously I had my trampoline background.
Yeah.
Obviously we do tumbling, so actually I wasn't as good as tumbling as I was in mini. I think I said mini. I'd actually trained just over a month. Went to the British Championships. I remember I bombed out in qualifying, and then in the finals just hit 2 passes and I came away with the title.
Wow!
After like a month.
Zero final at that stage, was it?
It was in Hull back in the days. The
mid-season thing. Yeah.
So I actually had so I did kind of get a flavour of success kind of early on with double mini, because I then won the year after as well. So actually in double mini I was winning. This was against like Luke and Nathan. Kind of, there was a group of us quite competitive at the time.
That's big names.
Yeah, so we were like, all three of us were on the same 13-14 boys team in Quebec.
And
so
were you drifting towards DMT at that stage, or was tumbling always your love?
I think tumbling, was always my main love, and when I got into it. But I did really enjoy mini. Again, working with coaches, I had a highly motivated coach at the time, and actually just kind of fell in love with it as well. Obviously, I was doing quite well at it. You said the kind of asked earlier about kind of when I decided to do just tumbling. I think the following year, 2008, I trialled for the junior Europeans team for tumbling and double mini. And double mini, I was expected to make the double mini team, but probably not the tumbling team. And there were 3 trials for mini. One of them was at the same time as the British Championships for tumbling, and the only trial. And I'd actually won tumbling British Championships for the first time. And so obviously got in the team, and kind of that was a kind of big breakthrough for me from that point of view. And then on mini, I think I made a mistake. I took off from the red, and one of the first which at the time was a 0. So even though I did my pass, so I missed one trial. I think I messed one up. Did quite well at the other one, but consistency-wise, they obviously couldn't take me. And I wasn't named as the reserve either. And at that point, I kind of went.
Saw that.
In so many words, well, as in the kind of, I think I'd always had enjoyed tumbling just slightly more, and that was always my more natural one. And then actually, because I said I could commit to tumbling because I had the Europeans to prepare for, and not for mini, I kind of went, yeah, okay, let's commit to just tumbling, and then went from there.
You made that junior Europeans team, and obviously only 4 people get to go to junior Europeans. 2008 was in Odense, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. So did that make you feel, and like you said, you won British, so did that make you feel like you're okay, I'm getting there, I'm really doing something in tumbling?
Again, not really, because actually, although we, had won the British, we were a very young team. So we went there as a very inexperienced team. I still remember the four of us. We were four kind of skinny 14-year-old kids. And I remember seeing these 17-year-old Russian boys, and they were doing their triples and 3 doubles. And we were doing like double touch, double pike, and twist to full in pike, like quite very low level stuff compared to them. Yeah. And I remember just going there and being like, again, just being a massive fan and watching these people like, oh my God, that's incredible. So we went to European Championships and we made the team final. We came 5th, I think.
Was that team final good? Because that would have been your first experience of a team final, because World Age and British don't have the team final. So what did that feel like? Did you feel that extra pressure?
Again, I'm not sure I had a lot, because I said it was, we were there for experience, no fun. I think we did qualify and we did well. We were really happy we made the team final. And then it was kind of, enjoy it now. We're not going to be competing for medal. And one thing I always am, as a competitor, I'm usually a lot better when I have nerves, adrenaline and pressure. If I don't have pressure, my performances are usually quite shocking. Whereas if I have pressure, that's usually when I've been more consistent. So actually the first team final I had there, I crashed it. So every team final since then, when we actually had a chance with fighting, I kind of have done my pass, but that was the first one where I actually tried to stick a landing and I literally just crumbled into a ball.
In a heap?
Yeah.
So like you saying that nerve gives you that fire, that edge that you need to be competitive.
Yeah, for sure. I think when we get to the bigger competitions, I visualize months in advance and I'm prepping my head so much, and it's kind of sometimes all I think about, and I just go over it and I'm just kind of building up my head. So by the time I think I get to the competition, I kind of feel so focused and ready for it. And then actually I always found I need that kind of switch on moment to go, right, go for it. Whereas we get to a competition, if I feel quite relaxed, I've not really been visualizing, thinking about it a lot, and I kind of just go into it. It doesn't usually go well. So.
Do you like knowing what other people have done? Because some people say they don't like seeing the score of the other people, but do you like knowing so that you know you've got that extra bit of pressure?
I've had phases, but yeah, I've always been a watcher. I'm kind of a tactician, and I used to love watching people and going, right, they've done that. That means I have to do this.
Because you can change your passes spur of the moment. I think you've done in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think that was probably my biggest strength for quite a few years, and actually turned into a bit of a weakness for a while, because sometimes, I got to one British Championships, for example, 2016, where it was the first time I was in cumulative final. So in qualifiers, I had quite a big margin ahead, and did my first pass, and the final was like, okay, yeah. And then I remember just in my head going, right, if I do this, okay, I can still win. Or if I make that mistake, okay, I can do that. And if I do this, I'll change to that transition, I'll change to this. And I was going through so many permutations that when I did the run, I completely had a brain fart. In the middle of the double straight, full out straight Miller, I think. And I thought, well, if it goes wrong, just go double straight before it's flick and just play safe. As one of the combinations. And then I came out, was thinking about that, and halfway through I started going flick somersault.
Oh God.
And I took off like a line of whips, and then just did an awful somersault. And I was like, but then kind of the reverse, I then actually did a backup from what I do in my training. I did a quick reaction, adjusted full and pike, landed, and just still won the title. But at that point I should have gone, just go and do your run. Have one backup and do it.
It's good to have plan Bs, but sometimes if you plan B, C, D, E, and F, it can muddle up, and you can't focus.
For sure.
Then.
And that's something I've had to work with last year.
So going on to 2009 and then the end of your junior career, you didn't do World Age 2009. Were you injured again?
Yeah, so I'd broken my arm. It was quite a bad break. So at this point, when I was young, I think in the space of a year and a half, I'd broken my foot 3 times. So I broke my foot on trampoline, then I broke my other foot on mini, then I broke my other foot again on tumbling. Then I remember I managed to concuss myself, and I was out for a bit of time because I hit my head on concrete. Then I broke my arm, and kind of in that space of a junior career, I had so many up and down. So 2009, I think, was the year I was finally starting to stand out. Before that, I was always kind of there. You know, I said I won a British, but it wasn't because I was doing that well. But then that year, we had a competition in France, and that was kind of one of the first years they actually kind of stood back, and they actually thought I was one of the senior gymnasts at that point, the French.
Oh wow, okay.
And that was kind of the first time I actually started to kind of do really well. And I remember going to that World Age, and I kind of started to think about the winning mentality, and I was like, I could go to this World Age Championships and actually win. I could try and push for a medal. I have a chance if things go well, I could win. And I actually made a massive jump. I think as a first year 15-16 on tumbling, I said I did like a double tuck transition to double pike. The year after, I did full and straight to Miller.
Oh wow, that's massive.
So I'd kind of physically matured a little bit more, and kind of things had started to click together. And then I was kind of starting to get to the stage I was getting quite hungry and starting to do quite well to look at winning. And then I broke my arm and had to miss the World Age Championships. And obviously it was only 2 years.
Was there any point in there where you've had all those injuries and stuff where you or your parents or anything said, right, it's time to call it quits or anything? Was that ever a notion in your head?
For me, no. I do remember my mum was kind of like, you know, my mum and dad were kind of like, are you sure, you know, you still want to do this an injury? But I think as soon as I kind of talked about it, they were like, yeah. Even throughout all the injuries, I remember when I had the time off, you know, they always said I wasn't the same person. As soon as I got back in the gym, they were like, oh my God, he's back to normal again. So I don't think there's any ever a question, even then, when it said, I did go through so many times of getting injured, having to fight back, injured, coming to fight back. I don't think there was ever a point where I kind of went, actually, I'm not sure I want to come back through it. I think I always had that love for it.
So in 2010, you obviously made another Europeans, and this time the team got a silver medal. So that would have been your first international medal. Did that spur you on again? Did you really feel like, oh, we could be quite successful as a nation in this discipline?
That was because obviously it said the 2 years before, we said in 2008, where we had that team where we were the young ones. We were there for experience. 3 of the same members were there 2 years later.
Okay.
So, and that was the first time we kind of went, yeah, we've got a chance of doing well at this. I'd obviously not come back soon after my broken arm.
Yeah.
So I remember before I got asked, you know, they kind of said, "Oh, you can take the plates out of your arm, or you can go to Europeans. Like, you're not going to be able to do both." And I kind of went, "Leave them in. Like, I'm going to Europeans then." I was that stubborn. But yeah, and obviously qualifying, I made mistakes, and I wasn't probably quite ready to be back in full competition. So I missed out on the final from the 2 per country rule. And actually, so Sean Gregory, he went and won the individual final. But yeah, that was kind of the first time in the team final, and I still think it was the most exciting team final we've ever had, because it was 4 up, 3 to count at the time, and it was us versus the Russians, and we went first. And the first GB boy went first, and then the first Russian went. We were 0.1 ahead. I went up then, and then we were level. So sorry, someone else went, and we were 0.1. We were level then. I went up. We were then 0.1 ahead again. So it was like back and forth. Yeah. The last person went and was 0.1 below, but because it was the 3 scores, we missed out on the goal by 0.1. But it was a final where it literally was like boom, 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 boom. And yeah, we kind of thought for the first time, we're actually able to compete. We'd never won the Junior Europeans at that time for the boys. I think we'd only ever got a bronze medal. So yeah, the fact that
we ever. But you're saying if it was like 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and you were looking on paper, silver medal's amazing, and it's the best result GB have ever got. But at the time, because it was so close, did you feel a little twinge of disappointment that we could have got that gold?
A little bit, I think. I think one of the other things was, and Craig Loud at the time, he used to make the joke about it, because in qualifying I was shocking, and I made mistakes. And then in the team final, so I was meant to do double straight to Miller, and Craig just said, do double straight to full straight. No matter what you do double straight to full straight. Because obviously I was aware. I then hit like the best transition I've ever done, came out, did a massive go, and I had to just do full straight. At the end of the competition, he was like, and why didn't you Miller? And I was like, I wouldn't dare do it if you told me. It was like
that's definitely Craig, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I loved it. So yeah, another time it was like, for a million we could have won the gold. But it kind of made us hungry. But I think more than anything, it wasn't actually about the gold at the time. I think for me personally, so I always was so. Like, I looked at the Russians and they were unattainable. We wouldn't be near them. They were like so many. I'd like so many of them, and just to chase them. And said 2 years ago when it was like, oh my God, they're so out of our depth. Whereas 2 years later, we would put one behind them. For me, that was kind of like, actually, we can. As you said, we can do this. Actually, it was kind of the first taste it was the first medal, but it was the first taste of actually we can compete against the bigger countries.
And it was like such a big improvement in 2 years. So next 2 years, God knows what you could do. That was the year then you went senior. Like that, so that turned out to be your last junior competition. What did you always decide? Because obviously it was the 17, 18 category at that stage, or maybe it was 17 plus. But were you always set on going senior that year?
So I wasn't. I obviously missed out. So missed out on the 15, 16 Worlds, where that was my chance of getting a medal potentially. And I remember thinking the 17 to 18, I was like, I could go there and win. And all the senior boys had just left. So the generation of Charlie Burrows, Mike Barnes, Damien Walters,
Greg Boozy,
Greg Boozy, Dan Lanigan. They stepped away. So Craig really wanted me and Sean to go as experience as a senior, and it wasn't a team worlds either. And I remember thinking, I could go there and just be one of the numbers, or I could go out and try and win a world championships, which I'm never going to have the opportunity to do again. So for me, I always said, I just want to go to the world age and try and win it. And Craig kind of convinced me, and Paddy had also talked about it. And we kind of thought, actually, it's not all about that. The better thing for me would be go and get the experience as a senior.
Do you think as well there's a thing of like, they kind of needed you as well? Because like you said, like the guys who had done 2009 had all retired or moved on to diving or whatever they moved on to.
Yeah.
Do you think that they needed you and needed Sean to go to that World?
Possibly a little bit. I guess essentially maybe they'd even already put a couple of places in that they thought they'd want to take in, and maybe they didn't want to take no one in the team. But as I said, from my point of view, I thought, well, we weren't going to be there to be competitive. So I was in my head, I was thought, well, actually, they're doing it because they think it's the best thing experience-wise. But yeah, perhaps they needed. I think they was thinking about the future. They wanted to build a senior team, which was the correct thing to do.
And I think the good thing about that year as well, the 2010 was the first ever individual Worlds, so it didn't have the pressure of team.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. And you were coming in as the senior British champion at that stage as well, weren't you?
Yeah, which is a bit of a shock because obviously I was just over 16. I think I was just turned 17 2 days ago when I won the first title. And that was a massive shock. I also had an absolute shocker in the final. So Mike Barnes at the time, he'd come back and he qualified, and I'd made a small mistake in qualifying, and he qualified in first. But I hadn't done my bigger stuff. So, and he tells me nowadays he says he was scared to go to the final and get beaten by like me and Sean, by the young boys.
Really? Well, he came fifth, didn't he?
Well, no. So in the end, he pulled out of the finals. So
really? Oh, is that why he's down in fifth place? Because he didn't do the final? So
he just turned up for qualifying to kind of get the spot for the World Championships. And anyway, in the final, I remember I didn't even watch, but everyone had a shocker. Every single person had an absolute shocker. And Mike could have won it like that. So I was actually very lucky. So I remember at the time, everyone made a big deal of it. I was like, because I was just turned 17, first senior championships, and I'd won. But I remember being like, I won with a double pike. Like I messed up my run and put a double pike on the end. I was like, I'm not sure this counts.
Did it feel like a fake win type of thing?
Or kind of, almost. I do remember at the time, it was a massive moment. But yeah, I always kind of thought, well, I didn't do what I wanted to do. I remember I never went to that British Championships for the result. It was like, we're going to put out our routine. We want to put out a triple tuck to land. We want to put out our millers to land. We want to try these again for the first time. So, and I'm always quite critical. If I can win a competition, if I didn't do my target of the routines, it's not a great competition for me. Whereas if I come ninth, but I've landed it, for me, that's a positive.
So you're more about the process than about the outcome.
More so, yeah. And there are times where I do go, actually, this competition is about trying to get the results. So I've had that, especially in my later career. But it took a long time to get to that stage. I think pre-2013 even, I was always about process more than anything else.
And you say everyone had a shocker in that year. That was the first year that you became part of the trampoline family domestically. Not internationally, it happened long before that. But do you think that it being going from Fenton Manor, which is a big sports hall, to you were in the NIA, which is a big arena, did it bring that kind of momentous to it?
It was yeah, and it was the first time I had people, because tumbling hadn't really been seen by the trampoline community. So I remember there were so many people who come up to me like, "Oh my God, that was amazing!" I remember like, "Oh, that wasn't the best performance," but obviously we were still the senior men in a sport that hadn't really been seen that much. So I had so many people coming up to me. I remember being like, it was a very surreal experience at the time.
Did that change how tumbling was viewed in Britain?
I think so. I think it kind of was a step of getting it kind of as a slightly more high profile scene sport.
So you went into the Worlds in Metz 2010. You came 14th. I think you and Thing had the same score. You had the exact same score.
Me and Sean, yeah, 14th and 15th joint.
Describe that experience. Like, did it feel senior? You'd done Junior Europeans, you'd done World Age. Did it feel, oh my God, I'm senior now?
It's still one of the ones I say to this day is one of my favourite ones, because I remember going. Obviously, I've always said I've been to these competitions and become obsessed and been a fan of watching these people. And I say more than anything, that is always what I was. I was just a massive fan of the sport. I was obsessed with it. I used to watch everyone on YouTube. And I remember going to that Senior World Championships, and I was with the other team members. So I remember, obviously, it was me and Sean, but there was the senior girls with Sammy, Jenny, and Zara. And I was on the same team as them, which I found a bit weird. And then I remember I was watching Kifarenko. I was competing against Kifarenko, Podest, Song, all these big superstar names. Tumblers, yeah. And I remember just being like, and they'd come up and shake my hand, be like, say hello. And I remember just being like, this is so weird.
You kind of spent that Words as a fanboy, did you?
Exactly. So, and I remember I fell on my triple, so I made a mistake. And actually, if I hadn't, I would have actually made the final just.
At the time, did you make that connection in your head at the time?
I did a little bit. I kind of thought, oh, that was a shame of this opportunity, because we always kind of thought you never know, we could make a final, but it was never a target. But I still come back to the competition, even though I made a mistake. It was one of my favorite ones because, as I said, I was just immersed in the first time of the senior. I think everyone will remember their first senior worlds.
That kind of wide-eyed looking around, of everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And looking over the trampoline and seeing people like Karaveva was there. You got people like that. You got Dong Dong. Like, it was just incredible from that point of view.
So you went on to win another British Championship in 2011, but then you went to university. Did that impact your training at all?
Not a huge amount. It was very different. Obviously, I wasn't able to train at Andover most of the time, so it was only kind of once a week. So the training regime changed a lot from that point of view. But by that point, we'd worked quite hard to kind of make. I'd become quite not an independent gymnast, but I would be able to work in any scenario. So that actually, because we knew when we was going to university, I wouldn't be able to just rely on having to work with Paddy all the time. We'd have to do things very differently.
Where did you do your sessions then, if you weren't in Andover all the time?
So it was Basingstoke for the majority to start with, and then Pinewood towards the end.
Okay, cool. And because obviously you did biochemistry and you're in Oxford University, so it's probably a lot of time heavy course. Did you find it tough juggling time for training as well?
A little bit, but I think I'd always been used to that. So I'd always travelled an hour and a half. So time-wise, I'd never had 3 hours out of the day was sat in a car. 2.5 hours training 5 times a week. That was a big chunk anyway. So when I was at uni, I was still an hour and a half away on training and cycling. So I remember the first year at university, I really struggled. I was doing terribly at university. I was getting mental blocks at gym, and everything was falling apart. And I remember that was the first time I'd fallen out of love with the sport. And I kind of thought, I don't think I can do this anymore sustainably. To be fair, but as I said, the sport time around coaches then was massive for me, and uni friends as well. just help you support through it. But it kind of was the first time I changed my outlook on it all, because I said I lost some skills. I kind of thought, that's me done. I'm not competitive anymore. And I kind of thought, well, just go and enjoy it. And I kind of had to remind myself why I did the sport. It wasn't to make the World Championships. It wasn't to win the British Championships. It was because I loved it. And if I didn't train, I wouldn't be able to work properly. The adrenaline and the endorphins and the kind of recovery, that's what made me then be able to be motivated and go back home and work. If I had to work till 3-4 in the morning, I could do that if I trained, and I'd find that worth it.
Did you work with any kind of sports psychologist or anything at that point, or who did you open up to about those feelings you were having?
Anne at Basingstoke at the time, she's very good on that kind of thing. So I talked to her a lot about it. She was very good with that. Talking to Paddy as well about things. He was always a great person to get things off my chest. So actually, I was very lucky with coaches, and I worked with so many different people. So yeah, they were definitely massive help and support to actually remind myself and kind of reburn my passion, because that's always why I said I've always worked with very passionate coaches, people who love the sport, and that in turn has, I think, made me love the sport, and that's made the hard work easy. I've always just come in and it's been natural because I said I enjoy it.
So then going in, at the end of 2011, we have a home Worlds. How important was it for you to make that team, to compete in front of a home crowd?
I'm not sure I actually understood what it would be like to do at home Worlds until we were actually there. So I remember obviously in Birmingham was like, oh, it'd be great because obviously my parents would be able to come watch it, and my family would come to watch it, friends might be able to come watch it, and stuff like that. But I don't think I really realised how amazing a home Worlds was until the moment actually competing. I remember the fight, because that was my first individual final ever. So I'd never made a final in anything.
Yeah.
So not a junior Europeans, not a world age. So that was my first kind of international final, which was a senior world championships, home crowd, and it was packed.
Yeah, I remember it.
That, to me, I remember it was always one of my favourite moments, because it was just kind of like.
Do you think that lifted, because you qualified in 6th, which is amazing, because like you said, it's your first final and you're at senior level and it's a Worlds, not even Europeans. Did they lift, because you moved up to 4th in the final, did the crowd lift you up? Did you want to compete when you felt that energy? Did it make you want to do better?
I think so, for sure. Yeah, as in, you kind of get shivers thinking about it now, because actually, yeah, the mood around the room was just crazy. And said, you're the other that's the thing, I have all these competitors who I'm still looking up to, and they get a cheer, and then I do my present. I'm an 18-year-old kid competing against my idols, and suddenly the whole room goes mental for you, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. No one cares about the experts or anything.
Exactly. And they were rooting for you, and yeah, and that was one of my best competitions. Kind of, I hit passes. I hit one of my passes, which is my favorite to watch. The other one I'd never done before, and did it, and kind of being 4th in the world. I remember being like, okay, that's it, I'm done. Not as in I'm finished, but as in that is going to be the pinnacle of my career. I'm never going to get better than that. Enjoy that, and I loved it.
What was your goal going into that competition? Was your goal to make the final?
I think so. I think after the year before, I thought I could have made the final. It was kind of like, at this point, I'd get very tactical. I knew exactly who was doing what routines, who the top 8 could be. And if they hit this, they hit this. And I was starting to go, I know I could be here. And I remember thinking, top 8, that's what I wanted to do.
At that stage, obviously, YouTube and Instagram and stuff starting to come through. Would you watch performances and stuff? Because I know it's a big thing now. Everyone puts their performances and their training videos up. But would you have watched any videos you could find of them in training?
Every single video that was ever available. I've got videos of kind of every competition I think there's ever been. And if there's no tumbling competition, I've seen it. If there's no mini competition, I've seen it. I used to watch everything. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I spent my time. I became a fan because, as I said, I watched all the videos of these senior gymnasts, every single World Cup, every single Russian championships that was on a small website. Yeah,
find it somewhere. So in some hole somewhere in the depths of the internet. So in that competition, you're starting to build a senior team now. You've got Sean, Dan, and Jordan with you at the competition, but you qualified in 3rd, but dropped to 4th in the final. Was that a bit of a disappointment?
Yeah, so I think that was because I said obviously the aim individual was top 8, but obviously that was the other thing. We were going there to kind of pushed to be a team. And three of the boys, we were the three boys from the Junior Europeans team. So it was our first one, but we kind of thought we could do it. And there was the Russians and Chinese. We knew what they would do, but actually the third bronze medal was in our grasp. And yeah, on the day it was just a small mistake, and actually it was kind of like it was gutting, because I think at the time we knew we could have done it, but that was sport. It just didn't quite happen.
Yeah. But then, so obviously after home worlds and everything like that, you go to the 2012 Europeans in St. Petersburg. Now you must now at this stage thinking, okay, I've come fourth at worlds. It's my time to really push and to make an impact in Europeans.
I think that was one of the first times I kind of thought I could, this is now a good time to kind of be competitive. Obviously I remember being fourth place and being like, I think that's it. I don't think I'm going to be able to top that, because it was kind of the stars had aligned on that day. But I do remember Europeans being kind of like, actually, you know what, we can. And Paddy was always very ambitious. So we were kind of like, we're going to push this. So I had a few upgrades to try. And I remember in qualifying, I did really well and qualified quite high up. I was kind of like, actually, we could do this. I say high up. I think I was fifth or sixth. I can't remember.
I think you went in for sixth, but then pushed up to third after.
Yeah, but kind of knew what people were doing, and there was and I remember Kifrenko. He's one of the times that was always a massive idol for me, and actually he came fourth, and I beat him by 0.1. I remember at the time being like, I watched his routines. I was like, I didn't beat him. I was like, he beat me. I was like, I did not deserve to beat him on that routine. I kind of felt a little bit bittersweet, because I do remember at the time thinking the guy came second. I was like, well, perhaps maybe I was still third, but after the Ukrainian should have been second.
Okay. So, but you look at your fans through or you look at your idols through rose-tinted glasses, and you're more critical of your own performances, possibly.
I mean, I came from that competition, and although I got my first ever international medal individually, I made a small mistake. I could have done better. I could have hit cleaner routines. So I remember I would have, that would have been a massive dream to actually get the medal, but I still came out of that performance and was like, actually, I could have done better.
So when the moment you won the medal, that kind of elation didn't last too long. You were starting to think about your performance after that.
I think, as in, it's strange because, the elation actually of the medal was, it was kind of like, I've got the result. That's brilliant. And kind of was very excited from that point of view. But it was kind of like, okay, but back to the drawing board. Actually, that wasn't what we set out to do. I set out to hit these two routines and see where it placed.
And actually, then looking forward, because you were thinking probably forward to the World Games in 2013. So you're probably thinking what I need to do to get there. Was that, or were you thinking of the World Games that early?
No, to be fair, I don't think I knew. I'd actually considered the World Games to a bit long, because me and Sean were still very competitive. Sean he stepped away from that point. So although I was consistently winning at the senior level in Britain, I never felt like, I wasn't dominant. It was always I kept just pipping on the day. So kind of for the World Games spot, there was no guarantee. So although it was nice to push for, World Games is very hard to, I think, build any expectation around, because you don't know when you're going to go, because there's only one place. Whereas in a team of four, you might have a great idea of, actually, no, I should probably make a team of four, but a team of one, you can't guarantee.
So when did you, obviously you qualified for the World Games. What was the process in 2013 of qualifying for that?
I think at the time it was a bit strange, because I think actually, because Greg has just come up, and Greg was obviously the wonder kid. But I think they'd kind of made, and Lucy had come up as well, but I think they'd kind of made the decision, and the personal coaches and Craig and everyone, they all got together and kind of thought, well, Lucy and Greg might be able to challenge me and Rachel. But me and Rachel had been on the senior circuit for 3-4 years now. So they kind of said, well, Greg and Lucy's first times probably aren't going to be the most experienced. So actually it's better for us to go.
Experienced people.
So we were kind of quite lucky. And me and Rachel did win the British Championships. So we did kind of win what the trial was. I think it was kind of, we decided that it was the best thing for us to be able to do.
And at that stage, that was your fourth British title in a row. So if you're banking on experience and you'd come off the bronze medal Europeans, if you're banking on experience and who's going to hit on the day, you probably put your money on you.
Yeah, at the time, probably, yeah.
What did it was Colombia, wasn't it? The World Games.
Colombia, yeah.
That was a bit of a mad one. Like, you got there and the warm-up tent was shaking, nearly falling down. It was too warm. You nearly weren't going to compete. Like, what was that experience like?
It was maddening, because I remember we were going there and we were kind of on such a high of the year, and it's kind of like the event. It's still one of my favorite places to go. The actual place was amazing, and it was such a different culture that we actually got to see a bit around. Essentially, but I also just remember sitting on the bus talking to Rosie McLennan and Jason Burnett, and I've been like, okay, wow. I'm just casually having a conversation with Jason and Rosie here, like, as you do. And yeah, we got there, and the other thing, it was amazing, is because we were there with the acro team. There's the DMTs, there was the trampoline. It was the first time it felt like such a close community. Whereas before, it had been a little bit his tumbling. We knew the trampoline DMTs, but actually it was never that integrated. 2013, Craig did a really good job of kind of getting everyone stuck in together. And the World Games was a natural starting point for that, because everyone had to be close together anyway. So from that point of view, it was such an amazing competition to be a part of. And obviously, the occasion, it's every 4 years. It's made to be a big deal.
Did it feel like the Olympics? That we always say in DMT and everything, that and tumbling, that is our Olympics. Did it feel like the Olympics? Is that the feeling you got?
I think so. I mean, it was such a strange feeling. I remember when you got off the plane, we were escorted by police escorts through the town. I remember like, what the? That's a strange thing. We just felt like it was another tumbling competition away, but it was almost treated like minor celebrities when we were there.
Because even the crowd in the arena went mental every time you did a pass or anything.
That is still one of the most. We say obviously we just had Birmingham where you had the home crowd. It felt like a home crowd for everyone. They were such an amazing crowd, because they went crazy. They just you give a little wave, you land, you give a wave, and they just the noise is deafening. And you have a full packed arena.
Did that, because obviously you came third, you had an amazing competition, you came third. Was that expected?
I think we knew it could be possible, but no. Again, I always think these moments, I never had the expectation until it happened. I was never planning on these things. And I remember World Games, it's the first time I'd put out international 2 double straights triple tuck. And I remember I was in I was in joint first place after that run. And we're looking at the scoreboard and we're like, wait, what? Like, what the hell, how the hell's that happened? And I qualified in second. And I remember, I remember that point. I remember being like, that's it. That is like a moment which I'm never going to top. And every time I had these moments, I thought, well, where do I go from there?
That's funny, because like most people go into it and they think, I'm going to be world champion and stuff. But you were always just trying to pip your previous performance, and you always thought that was your pinnacle.
I do think, to be fair, I had a few lucky moments. I don't think I was ever at a world leading standard when I had these results. So I was I the third best person in the world when I was at the World Games? Probably not. Was I the best in the world when I won the World Championships? Probably not. Have there been times in my career where I have got to that standard? Yes, possibly. There's been times where I might have been just about the best, but not in those competitions. So the early competitions where I was getting the results, there was no expectation of it at all.
So then, after World Games, you're going into the World Championships. But I want to ask you about this, because there was obviously a big change in the tumbling camp at that stage. Craig Lowther, who was your head national coach, became the head national coach of all 3 trampoline gymnastics disciplines. Did that change the tumbling camp a bit? Like, did you lose Craig a little bit, who stepped into his position, and did it feel different?
We lost Craig a little bit from sometimes, but not really. He was still, I think we still felt like he wanted the best for everyone. It still felt like he wanted us to succeed so well. So although he might not be physically with us in every moment, he was still down coaching with us. I think the main thing he did, I remember that 2013 Worlds, that was the main competition where it all started to come together. The trampoline, DMT and tumblers, we were a team now. Before, we were 3 disciplines, all part of, working as a team in a way. But this time we were just one team. There was no distinction. And it really helped. I think we had one of the best World Championships, and we went from there. And I think that was actually down to how, obviously everyone supported and interacted it, but how Craig set that system up, really.
Yeah, I think I remember always, because I was part of the World DMT thing at that point. It was my first year, and he was always the TEAM, together everyone achieves more, and he would always hammer that in, hammer that in, hammer that in, and he set up a really good structure in DMT that wasn't there before, and really focused trampoline, and so like he did transform trampoline gymnastics. But I always wondered, did tumbling feel a little bit like, oh, we're losing our leader a little bit?
I think a little bit, especially towards the end when he was starting to having to do a lot more with trampoline. It did, it did feel a little bit like that. But obviously, we still had a great team around that. Obviously,
yeah, obviously. So going into the World Championships, I know you never have any expectations, but did you dare to dream that you could get a medal, or you could push up into the top of the podium?
No, okay. So I think going into the World Championships, the World Games, I'd obviously got my bronze medal, and that was kind of like a massive deal for me. Actually, then going to the World Championships, we have 2 per country again. I remember being like, okay, I'm probably going to come 6th on my best day, kind of like that. And again, I think the biggest shock or the biggest day I've ever had in my career was World Championship qualifying day, because we were round 1 with the Russians, and I remember did my passes, did really well with them, and I topped the Russians, and I was in first going after round 1, and I'm like,
what the hell?
Like, should be in final. We then watched, because we were first round, we then watched all the other rounds, and we just watched people make mistakes. It was a very hard track. It was a track where everyone really struggled with, and we just adapted quite well, some of the Brits, mainly on it. I watched Kifrenko, who had won the World Games, joined, and so he beat me at Colombia. He crashed, so he was out. We watched Song, who'd won the last 2 World Championships. He was out because he made mistakes. And suddenly it was like, wait, what's happening? People were going, and then it got to the end of the day, and I'd qualified to the finals in first. Yeah. And again, I remember thinking, I've just qualified to a senior World Championships in first place, and I'm thinking, that's it. Again, I'm not going to top that.
So at that point, did you not think, oh, if I'm first now, I could possibly go and be first at the finals?
That day, I don't think I was in control of my head. Like, I think my head was racing about a million directions, because I never planned any of that going into that. I went into that and thinking, you might go 6th. If you hit your best ones in the day, you can come 3rd. Suddenly, I was like, I have an opportunity here to get a medal, which I'd come 4th in 2011. So a medal would have been amazing. I kind of thought, can you? What could you win? So actually, and I spoke to coaches, spoke to Craig and everyone. I kind of thought, this is it. This is the only opportunity I'm going to have to win the World Championships. I thought, you've got to do it. So I tried. I planned in the final. We'd gone to a team final. We'd come 3rd, and I remember thinking that we got our first world medal from that point of view. And I thought, brilliant. So I'd got my world medal. We obviously had the World Games one, but I had the World Championship one. And I kind of thought, and I kind of thought, you've got to go for it. This is the only chance you're going to have this chance where some of the big names are out. You're in first place. You get to watch everyone. You get in tactically decide. You can go for it. So I planned passes I'd never done before, ever. Spoke to
as you do.
Obviously, of course. But I'd never been someone who had to do all my passes in training. If in my head I'd done the components, so I'd done half the run, and I'd done the numbers of that in my head, I was happy. So I spoke to Craig about it, and Craig said, no, you've got to go for the medal kind of thing. You haven't done his passes. And Vov at the time, who I worked a lot with, he lied. And he went to Craig and went, no, he's done it. He was like, I've seen him do it. Because I talked to him and he was like, I think he was in the same boat as me. And he was like, yeah. And he just basically lied in front of me. And I was like, okay, fine. And then actually when we got into the individual final, I did the first pass, which I'd never done. I cut the full out, double straight, triple. I was in first place. And it was kind of like, okay, right, I can do this. And the other pass I was going to do was double straight, 2 whips, double straight, whip, because I still had my mental blocks. I still couldn't do some of the twists and transitions. So I was still limited. So that's why I went to that World Championships with not much expectation, because I didn't have the skill set I used to have. I was actually limited from a big point of view from that thing. So I couldn't win because I didn't even have the best of my arsenal.
And in that final, obviously you had Greg in the final with you, and you say that obviously the team, that was the first competition where Champion Tum Dublin was one big team. Did that help in the final? Help having that such a support? Because I remember the World Age team had arrived as well, just in time for your final, and we were all big crowd. Did that noise and that support help, and having Greg on the floor help as well?
It was the first time I mean, the team, we'd never actually made the team medal. We'd always just missed out. And this was the first time I was like, wow, we've done it as a team now. We'd watched the trampolinists win their team. We watched, Kathmandu had won their gold as well. And then actually hearing the Brits as well was, be able to see them just as we arrived. So I had Greg on the floor for the first time, which for me was like, right, there was kind of that, well, we can do it as Brits. For sure.
After you landed your last pass, did you feel like, before the score came up, did you feel like you'd done enough to win even?
So it was a strange situation. So on pass one, I did my routine and I was still in first. I still had the Russian guy, which again I didn't. I was like, okay, I don't know how this happened, but I am cool. And I was there. I had my notebook. I was writing all the scores down, looking, and then a couple of people made mistakes again. I remember being like, so the other Russian had quite a low score, and he had qualified just below Greg. So I had a couple of people to just have a quick look at, and I remember thinking, right, I can now, and I'd never done this other pass, and I was a bit nervous about it, but I thought I could do a simple pass here that I did in qualifying, and I could get a medal here. I could get a guaranteed silver medal, and I wussed out, and I went, you know what, I'm just gonna, even though it's my only opportunity to get the gold, I went, just go for the silver. So I wussed out, and I decided to do that run. It wasn't until the Russian guy who qualified in second, he'd just gone, and I saw he did a second routine. I went, yeah, fine, he's won that. I'm going for the silver now. I remember standing at the start of the track, and I'd worked out all the scores, so I knew, and I looked at his routine. His score came up, and he got massively underscored for it, because he'd landed on the track. He took 3 steps and shuffled, and he had a time penalty. So there's loads of things I didn't realise. And as soon as I saw that score, I knew what I would score my easy routine, and I knew I'd scored 0.3 higher than I needed in qualifying. So I actually was like, oh, I'm now actually doing this routine, this easy routine, to win. So although I was initially doing it to just win the medal, I was like, actually, if you hit this, you've won. And I didn't really have time to
on that pass, on that run even.
Say again, sorry.
Did it put more pressure on that run?
Yeah, I remember I can still see the video of me like just breathing. I had Kath there, previous world champion. She was just like, did really well just to calm me down and go, right, okay, focus. And I remember being like, right, well, this is it. You're now hitting this to win. So that's kind of when I landed. I knew I'd got the silver medal, which is what I wanted. But I remember thinking, I've just hit that cleaner than qualifying. So I thought, I've done it. Right. So at that point, we were like, I might have just done that to win the world championship. So,
but you never know what the judges are going to do. So
exactly, of course. So yeah, it was no guarantee. But I remember just thinking, I've got my silver medal. I've just given myself a shot to win here. And then obviously when we saw the score, it was just like, it's crazy. Yeah.
I remember. I had just done my international tumbling judging course, and I remember watching Tajir before he ran, going, he's going to get a time penalty. He's going to get a time penalty. And it was, well, you could talk about the landing, but the time penalty, one of the simplest things to really control, because he went and chalked up his hands, came back onto the thing, and I was like,
and then just
and that cost him the world
title.
Yeah. So like it was that close between the two of you. So like, so when they come up and you'd landed, and obviously done really good pass, but we knew it was a little bit less difficulty. So I remember in the crowd, the feeling was like, oh, is he going to do it? He's going to do it. And it was just elation in the crowd as well. When everyone was jumping up and going mental.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would have felt like you.
Well, as I said, I remember the time it was an absolute crazy moment, but it sounds stupid. I came back a month after. I remember being like, but I did the easy routine. I remember being like, I didn't feel like I'd actually won. I felt like, well, there's a couple of people who were in the final. They could have won it. Tagir, he should have won. I was like, actually, even with the things, I still believe that he should have won. And actually, I worked out on a different execution scoring system where you use mean instead of modes, whatever. He won. He actually beat me by 0.9. But because of that judging situation at that time, that was the only reason I'd actually won at that time.
Well, you have to go on what the rules are at the time.
Of course. So but I do remember thinking, so whenever people ask me about my favorite competition, that was never my favorite competition. The qualifying day was my favorite, because I remember that was a moment I'll never forget. The final, obviously, it was such a massive moment, but I do remember after being like, you copped out. You didn't do your big pass. If you'd won with your big pass, fine, but you didn't.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but as long as you felt at the time, but that shows the kind of mark of a champion, that you're always wanting to be better and you're always wanting to win at your best.
Yeah. And that's why for me, the time that it really cemented my favourite competition was European. So I think we had European Championships in start of 2014. So that was the next big competition.
Give me a raise.
So yeah, the Grimmer. So that was the one where I was obviously going in as the world champion. There was a lot of pressure now, expectation, which to me I wasn't used to, because I was never one of the big guys. I was still that fan. I was still competing with my idols.
So when you went in and you came sixth in the prelims, was that a relief just to get into the final, or was that a bit of a disappointment going, I'm the world champion, I should be higher?
No. So about 3 weeks before, I had really bad plantar fasciitis and I couldn't walk.
Right.
And I remember ringing up Craig up, and I was like, I rang him and I said, I can't go. I was like, it's not fair. You take the reserve. I'm not going to be able to do this. Because I hadn't trained for 3 weeks before. And he kind of said, well, morale-wise, we think it's still best if you kind of go for the team. So I went anyway. But in training, I did nothing. We went there, and I was in such pain I couldn't train much. And I had to just do, I think I did a few whip runs. I think I did one double straight on the end and one transition.
Oh, wow, that's it.
And that's all I did. And then in qualifying, I had to like, let's have a look. Let's bite through the pain a little bit. Let's see what happened. It wasn't going to be something that I was going to make a lot worse. It just really hurt to do a lot. So I did qualifying, scraped in the final and sixth. I remember being like, right, I'm still in the final here.
Yeah.
Team final, we had a bit of disappointment. There was a couple of small mistakes again, and we still didn't get that European medal. But yeah, then final day, obviously I was down in sixth. I remember like, well, you've got nothing to lose. You have no expectation going to competition. I felt a little bit of pressure from being the world champion, but I didn't, because obviously everyone had seen me not do anything. I was there. I was written off from that point of view, that actually, I wasn't going to be the main contender.
Everyone probably was aware that you were injured and to probably not expect a lot from you.
Yeah, exactly. And that competition, I didn't have Paddy there. I didn't have my my personal coach there, but I'd been working with Vov a lot. So we'd been going over so many tactics, and he was at that competition, and we were kind of like, what have we got to lose? We had a game plan. We're going to attack. I did my first routine. It was okay. I stumbled on the landing because I said I hadn't done much, but I'd landed it, and I was like, okay, I've got a fairly good score. And I'd just been working on my mental blocks on one of my moves, and it was the double straight, full and straight miller. I'd never done that routine. I'd done components. We prepped it all in training. I did that with Vov a lot. We'd really worked on that. So I kind of thought, well, I've just got to trust it and go for it. I put my hands up on that last routine. I've got nothing to lose here. Go for the routine. And I remember I hit the routine. I hit the miller one for the first time in my life. Landed it and kind of thought, where did that come from? Because I did no training. I just had to completely trust on previous training. I had to just bite my tongue through the pain almost. And we kind of said, go through routine. We've got no major competition for a long time. You have a good time to rest. And yeah, so when I obviously then came out and won that competition, for me, that was kind of like that was my favorite moment in like my career I've ever had, because it was kind of like, I had no expectation of it. It kind of solidified, it kind of made me feel a little bit more worthy of the world title as well. Because obviously this time I'd actually gone and done my passes. And I was crowned European champion. I'd beaten people where no one expected me to actually do anything. I didn't expect anything myself. I went to that competition a bit down of, well, it's a shame you don't have the opportunity to do it well. And I came out of it and become crowned European champion. And I was like, it was so surreal. And suddenly I felt like, okay, actually, I can call myself world champion. I can call myself European champion.
So that competition validated in your head previous results?
I think so, a little bit, because it said from the Worlds, I went there, won because of other people's mistakes. This is the time where actually I went and did everything I could do and more, a hell of a lot more than I expected to do, and genuinely beat people. And for me, and Greg was on the podium as well. Greg came second at the competition as well. So both of us in the final had done so well. So we came at the competition. It was just like, yeah.
Was that kind of the start of the GBR men's resurgence in the sport? Because obviously you said Greg, he got a medal at that competition final as well. And then looking to the 2015 Worlds, where Elliot stepped up and he was doing well, and you know, he started coming through and he'd won the Junior European stuff. Was attention coming on the men's program from around the world at that stage?
I think for the first time we were kind of being looked at, actually we can challenge. So I do remember like speaking, going to the Russians, and they were kind of watching us in training now.
Okay.
I was thinking, but before, we were just one of the other countries there. But actually, for the first time, they were kind of watching us and kind of going, "Oh, what are they going to do?" And that was the kind of thing where actually I think felt as a country, the girls were always very competitive, but for the boys, it was like, actually, we can go out there and actually compete with them. And we'd started to get teams. Said Greg was one who really pushed me throughout the years, and obviously we started to do really well internationally as well. As soon as Elliot came through, obviously he started to really push as well, and that was kind of Mike came back and obviously kind of as an old timer kind of solidified. Actually, we got a good team. We won the Europeans 2016. And then, it was kind of actually, we can do this. And yeah.
You were the first world champion as well. Were you very aware of that before you went in, or was it a big thing that made of it after?
No, I mean, for someone who knows all the history, I don't think I actually had really understood. I knew we hadn't had many results in a while. We hadn't had a world medal. Sam Palmer, I think, was the last world medal we had in men's or women's in 2005. So we hadn't had a world medal in 8 years.
Did the focus change then? Because obviously you had won Europeans, you had won Worlds, you medalled at World Games, so you kind of ticked all the boxes for individual success. Did the focus change a little bit to the team after that? Because you talked about the 2016, you won the team event, but obviously all four, junior girls, junior boys, senior men, senior women, you all won the team event at that competition. Was the focus more on team then? Like, how did that feel?
Yeah, I think the 2016 Europeans, that day is the other day that I say is one of my favourites. So the 2014 my individual final, the 2016 the team final day, because that was just a day where we know we could do well. The junior girls were always at the races to win. Yeah, but there was no guarantee. But they we know they had a shot. Senior women, well, to beat the Russians was going to be tough, but they could. Junior boys was going to be very difficult. And senior men, we were like, it's going to be very hard, but we could. So the stars, again, had to align for us to actually beat them all. But it was, it was Britain first, Russia second.
Oh, really?
And I think that day was just quick because it was all on the same day, all 14 finals. We went first, the senior men, and it was kind of like, that was the first time it really felt like a big team one because, for me to have like Mike back in there as well, we just missed out on the world medal by 0.1. But he really stepped on that final as well, Mike, because he was told by Craig, similarly, he was told actually to play safe. But Mike actually ignored him and decided to go for a bigger skill. And if he hadn't, we wouldn't have won.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, Mike always does what he wants anyway, doesn't he?
Exactly, yeah. That's why it's hilarious. Whenever he's on, obviously, he's on the coaching staff now, and he attempts him like, I remember what you were like there, Mike.
But so, like you're saying that the Russians were all second. I know that in the history of GB tumbling, you would have modelled a lot of your technique and everything on Russia's. Like a lot of time you would have gone to Stavropol, you would have learned from Vadim. All your coaches in the 80s and 90s would have gone there. Was there a bit of rivalry then because you were so closely linked and you had learned a lot from them?
I think so, for sure. I say, especially with Vadim still being on the, he's there with his Russians and we've got his gymnasts coaching against him. It is quite funny, and it is quite nice to have that rivalry. But yeah, we've got to a stage now where, so especially like the women's always been to compete with the men. We couldn't beat the Russians really without mistakes, and that was one of the first times actually we went out and beat the Russians. That was the first time we can do this, and that's kind of set like so. The recent team success we've had has kind of come from the confidence of actually, we can actually beat them.
Yeah. And then you went into 2017. Was that the aim then? Did you want, because you've beaten them already, you can beat them. And you've just missed a world medal last time, but you've got a bronze previously. But you start getting these amazing gymnasts come up. Like you've got Greg, Elliot, you've got Callum Mulhall, the Birmingham boys are starting to come up. You must have felt this is a strong team.
Yeah, I think that was the first year. 2016, when we won the Europeans, was like, it wasn't a big expectation. 2017, it was like, right, we've got these people, we've got a team that can challenge the world now. I don't think we actually genuinely thought we would go and do it, but we thought we've had times in the past where we haven't been the favourites and we've won. This time we could actually go out there and try. So yeah, on the day that, and it said there was a couple of small mistakes from the other countries. We managed to capitalise on it, but we knew what we could do. We would have been beaten if they'd hit their biggest stuff. But we knew what we were capable of, and we had the consistency. We did what we needed to do, and yeah, actually we kind of managed to do it, and that was a massive moment for us.
What did that world title feel like compared to the individual one?
You know what? Sometimes the team ones feel even bigger. Like the individual one is obviously meant to be the pinnacle one, but the team one for me, especially as I'm getting kind of more into coaching, it feels like a validation of the system and kind of, well, actually, I've always thought myself, a lot of time when I was starting up, before I had Greg and when Sean wasn't doing much, I kind of felt, well, it was just kind of me for a little while. It didn't feel as rewarding, whereas now actually it's kind of, we've managed to kick up a system again. We've actually fed the belief that we can challenge. It's so much more rewarding to see kind of the whole system come up.
So in that year when Elliot got his individual medal as well, did you feel like, was that just pride? Because you've seen him come through as a junior and you've probably mentored him a bit and stuff.
Exactly. And Elliot was one who had so much potential, and he was always one, but he always kind of just never hit the boat. And it was kind of like, so when it actually in 2017, it kind of all started to finally click. And that's for him, you've seen how much growth he's got now, and he's just gone from strength to strength. So yeah, seeing that moment where it kind of just clicked for him, where actually it just kind of came together, and you could see him growing up from almost the junior who was kind of watching us as seniors to now actually being part of us and pushing us. Now he's the one that we chase.
Do you feel like, because you're the senior member of the team, do you feel like a mentor or kind of like a team leader? Do you help them out a lot?
Slightly, especially when we get to like the team competitions. I know there's a lot of time where, they can always call me like the granddad and almost like the team captain sometimes, because like I'll be the one that'll be tactically right. This is what we'll do. This, you guys can do this in qualifying. You guys can do the team final. I said, and even I've given advice before to the other team members, which has been at my own detriment, which has made me miss TUM ones. But that's kind of not what it's about. It's kind of about actually, it never feels individual anymore. I think now we've got such a strong team, that's kind of the main focus. And actually we feel like we're all helping each other. And I get, I think the more I help them, they push me. And I'm kind of not at the stage of my career where it's all about being the one who wins now. I'm kind of trying to find out new goals and how to kind of push myself in different ways, and they've been able to do that for me.
In 2019, then you said, like, you remember that the European title validated your world title. You said that people made mistakes in that team final in 2017. So to go to 2019 and retain the team world champion title, did that validate the previous world title? Yeah,
I think that was the first time ever we went out there and we won. We were the best team. We went into that competition, but we had the training camp before with the senior men, senior women, and we kind of, I was going through all the tactics and looking, and I kind of thought, this is it. We've got such a strong team. We can win this. We're not looking at people making mistakes. If we got them, we hit our routines, we could win outright. And that was kind of such an exciting feeling going into it and going, we could do this. And obviously we know we have to hit on the day, and there's so many other things that can happen. Individually, I said I made a mistake in qualifying, which I don't usually make.
Yeah.
If I'd have made that in team final, it's so, you never know. But we kind of thought this could happen. And so, when it did, that was one of my favorite ones as well, because
so many favorite moments.
I know. It's stupid, isn't it? But
because it had been 2003 was last time it had happened for Great Britain. And like so many of those gymnasts from 2003 are now coaches on the national team. So how was it to share that kind of experience with them who had done it before?
Oh, exactly. It's so cool that you see actually they are idols. Those are the ones that we've seen do it, and they're the ones that are actually coaching and getting into the system. And for us to kind of then be able to follow in their footsteps and actually take what they're doing, be able to make, kind of almost our own legacy, and hopefully that will then carry on forward. Yeah, it's so cool.
So we've gone way over time, but I just want a couple of extra questions to talk to you about. You've known, like, I've seen stuff shared by numerous pages around the world that you do some pretty big skills in training. What's been the biggest skill that you've done in training?
So you know what? I've started my mental block. That was kind of when I lost all my skills. I started doing these skills to enjoy things, and that's kind of what gave me my buzz back into sport. I said in training, I played with various silly things. On track, I said at one point I was prepping full twist and triple straight. I was trying the full. So there are certain skills that I'm looking at getting. I want to go out and compete. Double twist and triple. That was the massive goal. That's why I always did the triple straight. The triple straight was never an end goal. It was like it's stupidly one of the things that I get known for, even though I don't even the one time I competed it and landed it wasn't even great because I wussed out on it and tried it. So it was always to try out the double twist and triple, and that's still a big target of mine to get that skill out. Obviously through injuries I've had to hold it back. But actually, and I thought I wouldn't be able to, but I'm going through strength now physically, so hopefully I can still get it out.
Is that kind of your next, because you've done it all kind of individually, is that your next kind of targets in that you want to be known for these big skills in competition?
Well, I want to get that skill out as a safe skill, but the more I've started coaching, the more my ethos has changed. I'm not comfortable chucking things anymore. Whereas before I'd be that person that would throw all these different skills. In my coaching, I'm kind of quite opposite. I try and just like, let's build gradually. And I felt like it's pinned onto me as a tumbler now myself. I watch all these people doing these bigger stuff and these quite scary stuff now. And I actually get quite uncomfortable watching it now. And I don't do it myself as much anymore. So I've actually changed my own ethos quite a lot. So I've still got the big skill I want to do because I'm prepping it in a way.
But you're doing it properly. You're not chucking it. You're properly preparing it.
Not that I ever chucked it, but I was always the person, I'll try doing that. I'll try throwing this new skill. And now with my own gymnast, I'm like, no, you've got to build things gradually. You've got to have this prerequisite and do that. So I've changed my ethos quite a bit now, actually.
You don't, because in turn, you're talking about double twists and triples, but you don't compete many triples. I think the most I've seen you do is probably triple tuck. Have you competed triple pike before?
Yes, I used to compete triple pike off one transition for a little while. And I did full and triple.
I was just going to say, because one of your idols is Kristof, who was the first guy to do full and triple, I think in 1998. And I'd never seen you compete it, and I was thinking, if he's his idol, why isn't he doing his skill?
Well, so obviously that was always the plan. When I had my full straight transition, I used to do full straight to Miller, and that was always the plan to go to the big endings. I lost my full straight transition. I had to go to doing 3 doubles. So double straight, triple, full out, full in, stuff like that. So actually, this year at the World Championships, I was meant to compete 2 transitions to full twist and triple. But obviously, I haven't got the full straight transition anymore, so I can't do the big endings. So for example, full straight to full and triple pike or something like that is not a routine I can do. So I have got to get my value from 2 transitions, which actually isn't probably my forte. But.
So you haven't got the speed of a load of whips to get the big dismount at the end?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you over your skill confusion and stuff now? Have you had many injuries or anything since? Because obviously junior, you had lots of injuries and some skill confusion.
So injury-wise, I'm touch wood, I'm definitely a lot more, because now I've had muscular stuff. 2017, I pushed to try and get back to the World Games, and I tore my soleus conjunction, and I didn't recover because I tried to rush back to trial for the World Games, and for a whole year I was really struggling to the point again where I thought I can't do this. So I had to then take a step back, completely change my physical program, and that's why I kind of thought, well, I'm done. But now actually, the last couple of years, I've become so much stronger because I've worked on it so much better. So that's kind of why I'm kind of trying to carry on and continue pushing myself now. So I've had some muscle injuries, but touch wood, I'm safer now, I think, as a gymnast. So I've had less acute injuries.
So do you think because you're coaching, it's kind of helped you protect yourself a little bit more? You're a bit smarter about your training. Listen to your coach.
I think so a little bit, yeah. Because as I said, I try and instill these messages, and sometimes you go, yeah, make sure you do that yourself. Like,
in terms of coaches and stuff, like you've had quite a few coaches influence your career. Who have had the biggest impact in your career? What's been their biggest impact?
I mean, it's hard to say to a few, as in I have so many. I think the biggest thing is passion. So I would say the coaches. So I have Paddy. Paddy's always been my my coach from when I was 12 years old. He was the one, when I came to tumbling, made me fall in love with the sport. Dawn as a trampolinist, she was so good at that as well. She's someone who's obsessed with sport and kind of went the extra mile to help me with anything. And then I have John as well, Andover. He does the same. He always kind of goes the extra mile. And then Vov is one of the ones recently as well, who's the same, who just instills so much passion and is kind of always there. I think that's the main thing for the coaching staff I've had. I've had some people who kind of, some of them are technically brilliant, some of them are psychologically brilliant, but more than anything, every single coach I've had is kind of always just felt like they're going to go through anything they can do to support me, and they are just motivational. And I think that's where I've had my career go like that, because I've always had people like that. But I've never ever been shouted at in a gym once, I don't think.
Oh, wow.
I've never ever had to do that. So as well as a coach, I don't think I feel like I should ever have to do that, because I've never ever done this because I've been told to, or I've been told off for doing that. But I've just, as long as I'm motivated and they instill the love of the sport into me, the hard work takes care of itself. And obviously, so people do need to be pushed at some times, and there's times I find it quite hard, and you might need to just kind of be like, snap out of it, let's push through. But actually, it's always just instilling the love into it, and everything else takes care for itself.
Yeah, definitely. So is your future after retirement, is it coaching?
I think it's definitely something that I will do. I'm looking into lots of other things. I'm looking at doing a couple of PhD ideas right now. I'm quite keen on kind of going back into that point of view as well. And I'm looking at plenty of things, even support kind of around sports. I'm learning stuff about psychology and stuff like that, nutrition, physical prep, stuff like that. But I think I've always got to have kind of a foot in the sport. So I've really enjoyed coaching a lot more than I thought I would, because I've been able to kind of take all the values that I've had and be able to kind of push them on as well, and actually try guiding people through kind of the career that I've had the past. So I think when I finish, it'll probably come naturally that I will always do some coaching, maybe not as a full time. I'm not sure yet, but I definitely would like to stay involved in tumbling.
And is your main degree, biochemistry, is that going to be a thing in your future, or have you kind of set that aside a little bit?
As you said, I've not used it in a long time, because obviously I've kind of dedicated to doing training, coaching, and I've obviously did some work with British Gymnastics and things like that to try and find out more about sport and kind of be able to keep training, essentially. Because I didn't want to have any regrets and retire too early. But I do kind of want to get back into that field, so I'm looking at PhDs around various areas that are kind of related to biochemistry. So I do think I will have that, because that is still a massive passion of mine. But it's hard when tumbling is still like obviously a massive passion that, I could never have gone into a full-time job within the industry and stepped away from tumbling when I wasn't ready.
Yeah, you have to do it on your terms and when you're ready to do it. Otherwise, you'll always regret.
Yeah.
So looking forward in the sport of tumbling, just briefly, do you have any thoughts on the new code that's coming in 2022?
2022 now, isn't it? Yeah.
Briefly now, Kristof, because I know you probably a lot of thoughts on it.
So when it first came out, I was quite a bit demoralised by a lot of it. I didn't like the direction the sport was going with it. There's plenty of good things. I like the fact they are looking at doing some changes. I think they've made a couple of adjustments when we spoke to it recently that actually that's going to be a lot more positive. So I think before we were looking at doing like two, you can do 2 passes, the best pass counts, which to me, I think changes the entire ethos of what our sport is about: doing things safely, doing things consistently. It kind of rewards that, well, have a go. If you land it, you might survive, you might do well. If not, try again. So, and I think they've rescinded that, which I think is very positive. So there's a lot of changes I think I think that was what they were saying in the pipeline. I think there's a lot of tactical things, which I'm going to quite enjoy as a gymnast myself, because I'm a very tactical person. So I'm going to quite enjoy being able to do the code a couple of times myself. But I do think when I'm looking at it as a coach, I think it's going to make some things a little bit more difficult, but we'll just have to kind of see how it goes and see how it adapts.
It could be amazing, or it could be the worst thing, but it's one of the things until we're into it, we don't really know. And there's changes in every discipline, so it's not just tumbling. We're all up in arms about it all. So,
yeah.
Chris, I think we need to finish up because we're kind of gone over an hour and a half at this stage. But there's so much to talk about. But the last thing I want you to say, because you've done everything in the sport, you're such a role model to so many gymnasts, is what would be your biggest piece of advice for a tumbler coming through, a young tumbler coming through now?
I said the biggest advice I would say, kind of from me personally, is just keep enjoying it and keep falling in love with it. I think, obviously, you know, set your own goals and kind of have things that you want to kind of work towards in the sports, but don't be defined just by that. The goals help and they help motivate you, but obviously keep them quite individualized. But as I said, just kind of remember why you first did the sport. Always look back and kind of say, you know, when you first came to sport, why you did it. You didn't do the sport to necessarily win this or to, you know, if you're struggling with a skill, well, that's not why you did the sport, that you had that skill, you know. So I kind of thought when I lost my skills, that was it. I was going to be out of the sport. So I had to remind myself why I loved it. So instead of retiring, I had to change my course and ended up doing really well, hitting goals I didn't realize I was going to hit, like World Championships, European Championships, Team Championships. Yeah. And I've kind of relearned the love. So kind of, yeah, keep reminding yourself why you do the sport and find out why you enjoy it, and then just keep enjoying it.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. But it's been fantastic talking today, Kristof, and it's been great because obviously it's not my main discipline of trampoline gymnastics. So it's been great to hear some stories and some insights behind your journey, and I think a lot of people will get a lot from it. So I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon. I'm sure I'll see you hopefully whenever we get back to competitions.
Hopefully not too long, indeed.
And I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, Simon.
No problem.